So as for the module 2, which is entitled Securing Operating System, as for the first part of this module, we are to look into different types of attacks: social engineering, viruses, worms, trojans, bots, logic bombs, phishing, whaling, phishing, spyware, keylogger, rootkit, and ransomware. Let's start with social engineering. Also known as hacking the humans, it refers to means of getting users to reveal confidential information. Example, an attacker contacts the help desk pretending to be a remote sales representative who needs assistance in setting up remote access. Through series of phone calls, attackers obtains the names, address of the remote access server, and login credentials, which will be used in accessing the organization's private phones and voicemail systems. I have here also a list in my slides, possible scenarios which are under social engineering attack. There are different social engineering techniques, one of which is impersonation. In this technique, an attacker pretends to be someone else. So this is social engineering is one of the most common and successful malicious technique in information security. In impersonation, the attacker charms the target to reveal information or provide access. There are different principles behind social engineering. One is authority. In authority, if you convince a person that you are in a position of authority, like you convince them that you are the boss, they may be less likely to question your request. And that position of authority could be yun nga, boss, or could be an upper management, a technical support, an HR, or enforcement. Another principle is intimidation. Just like authority, this can be a source of which can also be a source of intimidation. It is possible to intimidate the victim uh, without authority by having or conducting threats, like through shouting or even with guilt. Consensus, it is putting the person being tricked at ease by putting the focus on them, listening intently to what they are saying, validating their thoughts, charming them is the key to this element. So in scarcity, you convince the person who is being tricked that there is a limited supply of something and can be often effective if carefully done. For example, convincing them that there are only 100 vacation requests that will be honored for the entire year and that they need to go to a fictitious website now and fill out their information. If they want to take a vacation anytime during the current year, can dupe some susceptible employees. In familiarity, an attacker can familiarize him or herself with the users of the target system prior to the attack. The attacker may interact with users during meals. When users are smoking, he may join on social events, etc. This makes the attacker familiar to the users and in effect gain the trust and be able to execute the attack. In trust, one of the easiest way to gain trust is through reciprocation. When someone does something for you, there is often a feeling that you owe that person something, and in effect, you gain the trust. Um, the attacker gained the trust in the victim. In urgency, the secret for successfully using the urgency element is for the social engineer to convince the individual who they are attempting to trick the time is of the essence. If they don't do something right away, money will be lost, a non-existent intruder will get away, the company will suffer irreparable harm, or a plethora of other negative possibilities may occur. Uh, Other forms of social engineering include dumpster diving. This is a common physical access method. Companies normally generate a huge amount of paper, most of which eventually winds up in dumps or recycle bins. A dumpster may contain information that is highly sensitive in nature. In high security and government environment, sensitive papers are either shredded or burned. Next is shoulder surfing. This is one popular form of social engineering, and it involves nothing more than watching someone over their shoulder when they enter their sensitive data. They can see you entering a password, typing in a credit card number, or entering any pertinent information. In tailgating, this is also a favorite method of gaining entry to an electronically locked system, is to follow someone through the door they just unlocked. So again, we call this process as tailgating. Phishing. Uh, Under phishing, we have spear phishing. This is a unique form of phishing in which the message is made to look as if it came from someone you know and trust, as opposed to an informal third party. For example, in a phishing attack, you would get a message that appears to be from Giant Bank XYZ, telling you that there is a problem with your account and that you need to log in to rectify this right away. Such a message from someone you've never heard of would run a high risk of raising suspicion and thus generate a lower than desired rate of return to the fishers. Whaling, on the other hand, is nothing more than phishing or spear phishing, but for big users. Instead of sending out a to whom it may concern message to thousands of users, the whaler identifies one person from whom they can gain all of the data they want, and that is the manager or owner, which is the target of the phishing campaign. Phishing is a type of phishing done through phone. Watering hole attack is um, can sound a lot more complicated than it really is. The strategy the attacker takes is simply to identify a site that is visited by those they are targeting, poisoning that site and then waiting for the result. As an example, suppose an attacker wants to gain unauthorized access to the servers of an XYZ Industries, but XYZ security is really good. So the attacker discovers that XYZ does not host its own email, but instead outsource it to a big cloud provider. They focus their attention on the weaker security of the cloud provider, and on the cloud provider's email site, uh, they install a malware, and then wait until an XYZ employee gets infected and suddenly have the access they are targeting. Hoax is merely a to trick into believing or accepting as genuine something false and often preposterous. Okay, we usually call this as fake news. A virus, no? A virus is a piece of software designed to infect a computer system. The programs on your system starts to load more slowly. This happens because the virus is spreading to other files in your system or is taking over the system's resources. There are viruses that may be an unusual file that appears on your hard drive, or files start to disappear from your system. There are many viruses that will delete key files in your system to make your system inoperable. There are viruses that the program size changes from the installed version. This occurs because the virus is attaching itself to these programs on your disk. There are viruses that your browser, your word processing application, and other software begins to exhibit unusual operating characteristics. There are viruses that mysteriously shuts itself down or start itself up and does a great deal of unanticipated disk activity. I have here different types of viruses. First is the armored virus. An armored virus is designed to make itself difficult to detect or analyze. The way it works is because it covers themselves with protective code that stops debuggers or disassemblers from examining critical elements of the virus. A companion virus, on the other hand, is it attaches itself to legitimate programs and then creates a program with a different file name extension. This file may reside in your system's temporary directory. So when a user types the name of the legitimate program, the companion virus executes instead of the real program. A microvirus exploits the enhancement made to many application programs that are used by programmers to expand the capability of applications such as Word and Excel. Word, for example, supports a mini basic programming language that allows files to be manipulated automatically. These programs in the document are called macros, and there are programs created through macro. Uh, so next is multi-partite virus. A multi-partite virus attacks your systems in multiple ways. It may attempt to infect your boot sector, infect all of your executable files, and destroy your application files. A polymorphic virus, it can change its form in order to avoid detection. These types of viruses attack your system, display a message on your computer, and delete files on your system. The virus will attempt to hide from your antivirus software. Retrovirus, it attacks or bypasses the antivirus software installed on a computer. You can consider a retrovirus to be an antivirus. Retrovirus can directly attack your antivirus software and potentially destroy your virus definition database file. A self-virus attempts to avoid detection by masking itself from applications. It may attach itself to the boot sector of the hard drive. When a system utility or program runs, the stealth virus will direct commands around itself in order to avoid detection. Worm. Worm is a type of an attack uh, which propagates in the memory and even on the network. It consumes bandwidth and it may compromise application or the operating system to deliver too much payload. So a worm can do various things once it is on a system, but its primary purpose is to replicate. Initially, it functions as a standalone piece of software, and then later on, it will spread without intervention by another program. Trojan is a program that enters a system or network under the guise of another program. A Trojan horse may be included as an attachment or as part of an installation program. RAT or remote administration tool or Trojan is one that, as the name implies, it allows a remote user to access the system for the purpose of administering it. A bot is a software running on infected computers called zombies, often known as bot or botnets. Bots by themselves are but a form of software that runs automatically and autonomously. For example, Google has this Google bot, and it is mainly used to find web pages and bring back values for the index. Botnet, however, has come to the word used to describe malicious software running on a zombie and under the control of a bot herder. So denial of service attacks, DOS, and DDoS can be launched by botnets. Logic bomb is are programs. These are programs or code snippets that execute when a certain predefined event occurs. A bomb may send a note to an attacker when a user is logged on to the internet and is using a word processor. This message informs the attacker that the user is ready for an attack. Spyware is a type of attack different from a malware, actually. Um, Rather than self-replicating like viruses and worms, spyware is spread to machines by users who inadvertently ask for it. The users often do not know when they have asked for it, but they have acquired it by downloading other programs. The target of the spyware is to record certain informations um, in the victim. So one good example of a spyware is a keylogger. So a keylogger is a piece of software that records keystrokes pressed into a log file and then allows that log file to be viewed so that passwords and other sensitive data can be seen. An adware has the same qualities of a spyware, but its purpose is to display ads, advertisements, and generate revenue for the creator. Windows Defender can detect these types of attack. A rootkit are software programs that has the ability to hide certain things from the operating system. With a rootkit, a number of processes may be running on a system that do not show up in Task Manager, or connections established or available that do not appear in Netstat.display. So the rootkit masks the presence of this item. The rootkit is able to do this by manipulating function calls to the operating system and filtering out information that would normally appear. Ransomware is often delivered through a Trojan, takes control of a system, and demands a third party to be paid. The control can be accomplished by encrypting the hard drive, by changing the user password information, or via any of a number of other creative ways. Users are usually assured that by paying the extortion amount, they will be given the code needed to revert their systems to normal operation. And that ends the different types of attacks. So the overview, that is just as an overview, that serves as an overview and definition of these terms. And as we go along, we'll explore some of their characteristics. We'll even have some demonstration on these different types of attacks. And also, we'll have laboratory activities on how can we mitigate or find solutions if in case our computer system has been a victim of these different types of attack. So this ends part 1. Keep safe, and together we learn as one.